Hey up everyone, it's Al here from Danumblades. Now I've got a bit of a, well, the workshop's in a bit of an array at the minute. I'm just sorting out this new partition wall. I thought over Christmas I'll get started with that. I had a little bit of wood, I've had to order some more for it. Bloody hell, that's got expensive nowadays. But I have got a door and I've got a door hole as well, so that's, at least it'll keep the draft out. So what I'm doing at the moment is just doing a bit of leather work, and I'm making a couple of belts up at the moment. I only do it from time to time. I sometimes take them to shows with me, but type of belts I'm doing, so veg tan leather. That one's all cut out and ready to stitch up, well, get dyed and then stitch up. So that's just your standard belt. Now the other kind of belt that I make is one of these with a square on. There we go. All the brass I get from Abbey, England, their foundry. So it's a brass Bristol buckle, brass belt loop, and then the brass squares as well. So it's quite heavy duty sort of stuff. The idea of the square is that you can have your belt very long, and then you can feed it through your main belt loop and then in through the square and tuck it underneath. The benefit for that is if you wanted to use the belt for something else rather than just holding up your trousers, if you wanted to use it as a shoulder strap for a drag bag or anything like that, if something else breaks or whatever, it can be used. You've got a length of belt to be able to work with. The other idea that having the square on as well is if you had a cartridge belt, you're out shooting, you've got wearing a cartridge belt, not all of them have them, but if you put the square on it, you can feed the belt loop or the belt into the square, and it's hidden behind your cartridges, so it's not dangling about all over the place. So I've already made some templates up, I've cut them out already, but I'm going to do a few more. I'm also going to do sort of like the main section of the belt as well. Then I've got to dye it, but I'll just swap the camera around and I'll show you what I do. So that's the first section cut out. Now one more thing that I need to do with this is just to cut out this section here. So basically, let's sort of line it all up. So buckle goes in, that section folds over, belt loop. Now the belt loop goes where you can see the lines on either side of that. Now if I folded that over and then stitched it, it then sort of makes the belt section a little bit too wide. So what I'm going to do is just cut this section out, and then that bit will be on this side of the belt buckle, well, the belt loop rather, and then that bit gets stitched onto the other side. So it just flattens it all off. Obviously, let me put the square in as well, and it'll look something like that. Right, let's sort this out, finish it off with. Just with my set square, and all I'm going to do is cut down the stitching line, because that'll give us an idea where I need to be. There we go, and that bit's taken out. So now that bit's ready for dyeing, but I might as well sort out the other part of the belt while I'm here. So what I want to show you is a bit of a defect here in this belt I've noticed. So I've just cleaned it all up, and then this section here, you can see there's a little bit of a cut line in it. It might have been when they've been skiving the belt down or the leather down to make it to a certain thickness, and the knife's just caught into it. But you can tell by the way that the leather's bending that there's a bit of a weak point. Now if you're making the belt for yourself, that's not really a problem. You could just use that until it's and then if it breaks, it breaks. But because I want to be able to sell some belts, that's not ideal. So basically what I'll end up using is the rest of the belt. I'll just make the front sections so I'll just make a few of these up out of it, and then, like I say, I won't be able to use it as a full piece to be able to put onto the belt. But you find these things. Right, now I've got it all cut out. The next job is to dye the leather. I've already got one that's made out, well, coloured tan, so I thought I'll do one dark brown this time. So this is, oh, my camera's probably a bit wobbly, but this is Phoebin's Pro Dye leather, Pro Dye leather dye, I suppose. It's the spirit-based one, so basically it's not water-based, so as it goes on, well, I won't say it dries out, but the carrying agent dries out on it. So I just need to make sure I've got plenty on, even it out as much as possible. So what I'll do is I'll go over a few times just to make sure that I've got dye all over it and it looks even enough. With the veg tan leather, I like the look of the veg tan leather once it's dried out. It's not overly even. It's a natural material, so some bits for some reason will take the dye a little bit more and it'll be a little bit darker, and others will be a little bit lighter. I prefer that finish than have it one totally uniform, well, same similar colour that sometimes I think is a bit bland, especially when you've got like a large leather or like a wideish piece. These pieces are 1.5 inches if you're interested anyway. Right, so my belts are all nice and dyed. The next job that I'm going to do is I'm going to put them into some warm or lukewarm water. A couple of reasons. One is so I can bend all these sections before I get it all stitched together. So it's basically like wet forming. It's similar to what you would do with a knife sheath. Same again with the end of the belt, so I can put it onto the square. And the other thing is that I find that sometimes you get a little bit of dye residue that's not quite bound to the leather itself, and it's just to try and draw that out. So basically when you put it into water, you notice that the water will get a slight tinge to it with a little bit of the dye seeping out. So that little bit of dye comes out, so when I come to seal it, it's more likely that it's going to stay as a permanent fixture. So into the water. Right, I'm going to leave those for a minute now because I've already got the tan one sorted. So what I can do is I can start working on these. So if I just take it through here, still got my wall to finish. I'll get back to you. Right, as you can see, new workbench. I've got the wall all sorted out. A couple of things I might do just to sort my lighting out because I had to borrow that from somewhere else. Maybe put another leg underneath the bench. But other than that, it's fairly solid. Anyway, going back to the belt. So you've just seen I burnished the edges down at the edges of the belt and also of the auxiliary piece. What I'm going to do next though is treat either side of the belt. So on the back of the belt, which is sort of like the suede side, I'm going to put this tan knot. What I find with this, it seals the edges and sort of like all the sort of like furry bit, it sort of flattens it all off and makes it nice and smooth. So basically I'm going to paint it on and then I'm going to rub it all down. On the opposite side, I'm going to put some of this Canova cream. So what I'm going to do with this is literally just give it leather a bit of a rub down to start with, because that sort of helps shine it up a little bit. Put the cream on, which will soak into it slightly, and then once it's dried out a little bit, I'm going to give that a rub down just to brighten it up a little bit. Once I've done all that and I've stitched it all together, I'll be waxing it anyway to give it that additional protection. So we'll start off with this stuff. Get my old rag. And I'm going to start with the outer coating first because I want that nice and even. The back, because of putting the tan knot on, I don't want any of it to leach out onto the opposite side and then maybe stain it slightly. So if I start with the front first, then I'll move on to the back. Right, so that's that first side done. Then I'm going to put this on. So if I just take these two off, what I usually do is just pour it into a cup I've got a sponge applicator and then just paint it on. Right, now that's got a good coating over it, I'll just get a rag again, just a piece of material, and what I'm going to do is just give this a rub down. This will help smoothen everything off. Get rid of excess out of there. Last job for this section again is just to give the outer side a bit of a rub down, and you'll see from this it'll give it a bit of a shine. What I also see is once I put the outer coating of wax on, I find that it looks better if I put the Knoba cream on first. Sometimes it looks a bit flat. I might give it a bit of a buff down once it's all dried out as well, before I stitch it. Don't know how well it comes up. Well, that's pretty much ready to stitch together. Just give this another rub. There we go. Right, I just need to leave these to dry up for a little bit because they're a bit tacky, especially the tan knot side. So I'm going to leave them to dry and then I'm going to stitch them up. So we'll see in a bit. Right, now to stitch it all together. So just put all the brass in the right sort of places. So I've just put a little bit of glue on that section there just to keep it in place for the time being. So we need that brass section there, that bit in to go up to that stop, the brass squaring feeds in. What I might just do, just to keep everything in place, just go a needle and just feed it through in a few spots. I've already got some thread sorted, so what I'm going to do is just do this top section, well, the front section first, and then do the second bit as another piece of thread. Could do it all in one and just loop the thread just over this section, but I think just keeping it separate will look that little bit better. So I'm going to start a few threads down, through holes down. Right, start working my way on. Measuring a belt then. So a belt isn't necessarily what your waist size is. Usually it's a couple of inches different. People lie to you to make you feel thin. So the way to measure the belt, I use the front of the buckle, or the inside, basically the first inside line. I put that on an edge table. I've already put a tape measure down. So I'll line that up with the edge and I'll work it along, and you've got to see which hole you use on a regular basis. Ooh, misses. That is the hole that's going to be the centre point for most belts. If it was a standard belt, what I'd do is put one hole in the centre and then two on either side at an inch apart. Because this one is like the extra long belt that I'm making up, it'll just carry on with holes all the way down the edge of it until I get to a point where I'm just going to cut the leather off and trim it down. Now we know what length we need the belt. I'll get this one all marked up. So this one's going to a friend of mine. Usually if it's just a stock item, I'll just leave it blank, no holes, or cut the end of it. I only do that once I know what size it needs to be. I don't bother doing out unless I might make the odd one or two for shows, but other than that I'll leave them blank so somebody can actually tell me what length I want the belt. But I know what length this one's going to be, so I need to line it up, mark it where the hole that they said that they want it on. Just because this might be the waist size, I might leave that one or put one hole down as the lower side and then carry on all the way to the end with the holes all the way through to the end and then point it off. So I've got all the marks on that I need. Though for these belts are going to work out about the same length. That's what's been requested by the customer. So I'm just going to put a mark on where the end's going to be. So I've got a cutter that'll cut the end of that off. On these, the first hole is going to work out about 2.5 to 3 inches back in, but I'm going to start from this point here and then work my way out. This point is what he said I think is going to be his waist size, so what I'm going to do is put a hole back. The waist size is probably an inch or two shorter than what an actual belt size is, so that gives me a hole or 2 holes forward and then carry on all the way down. So that should mean there's plenty of holes there for adjustment to be able to, let's say you've had a big breakfast or something like that. So I'll get these marked up, then I can use my punch that I've got to go all the way along with holes. The 2 cutters I've got for this job, so this one here, so the 1/2 inch end belt cutter, so I'm just going to place that onto my marks where I put the far end of the belt, line it up a bit. You can get different belts that are already cut at sort of 1.5 inch, but sometimes they vary slightly, so there we go. Cuts that bit off. And the next one I've got is this thing that I managed to buy. So oval holes on them. It's a fairly weighty handle to it, and it's a cutter that's been put into well, basically 3 in a row, so you can line it up, because the difficult bits I find about putting the holes in, if you do them all individually, there's always a chance that they'll be slightly off. You can make them look about right by just giving them a bit of a wiggle, but just to start off we get 3 in a line, so it's fairly straightforward with this. So as I said before, one of the holes is going to be lower, so I'm going to make sure that looks about centralised. That's about right. Over the post, right. There we go, and as we can see, holes are all lined up nice and neat, so I can use that first, or rather the last hole, and then work my way along. One more in. There we go. So that's all the holes sorted out for the belt. I just need to trim these edges off, dye it, and it should be about ready for waxing up. So I'll just sort this job out. Ready for putting a bit of dye on it and then beveling it. There we go. I'll just get my dye pen, wait that to dry off, then I can burnish it. So I'll give that a minute or two. There you go, belt's all sorted. So just to recap, it's been made from 3.5mm veg tan leather. It's been dyed tan. I can also do them in black or dark brown. All the brass hardware is from the Abbey Foundry. Some good quality gear, nice heavy duty stuff. Just show you when the belt's all connected up. Fed through the square, makes it all nice and neat. So if you're interested in one, just give us a shout, put your email and stuff, it's all in the details. And other than that guys, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.